Americans for Fair Taxation presents the weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, July 15th, 2022. Congress gives their staff double-digit raises. Every for-profit business must deliver products or services that people are willing to pay for, or they'll cease to exist. Similarly, every nonprofit organization must show itself worthy of the contributions they seek, or they too will disappear. The local bakery must sell enough baked goods to cover all its costs, including employee pay, and make enough profit to support the owner. If the bakery employees want to earn more money, the only way they can get a raise is if the bakery owners generate enough money to pay for the extra expense. If the employees want more benefits, like a good medical plan, the bakery must have enough income to pay for the new benefits. If the employees can find a better paying job or a job with the benefits they seek, they'll leave the bakery. And this is what's happening in our present economy. People are moving, for the most part, to jobs that pay more and offer better benefits. Nonprofits who rely on donations from the public are in a similar situation as the for-profit bakery. For example, the nonprofit food bank in your city has a purpose that all of us support. But in order to attract donations, the food bank must persuade donors that they are using the donated money in the best way possible to deliver their service to the needy. If the food bank wants to increase employee pay or offer other benefits like a medical plan, they must attract the additional donations it will take to cover the added expense. Local and state governments are similarly constrained. They can't just print money. They must operate with the money they receive from their citizens. If they don't, then they, like Detroit and the rest of us who can't pay our obligations, are forced to declare bankruptcy. But there are different rules for the federal government. Most members of Congress have decided that the financial rules that apply to everyone else don't apply to them. In their world, if they decide to spend money because it's good for the rest of us, they're not limited by the amount of tax dollars collected. If they want to spend more money than they receive, then the Federal Reserve just prints up more money, and this borrowed money pays for the additional spending. Now, everybody knows that, but why is it relevant? An article in townhall.com points out that included in the $1.5 trillion 2,700-plus page omnibus bill is a $774 million increase in the Members' Representational Allowance, or MRA. That funds the House office budgets. This is a 21% increase over last year. There's also $18.2 million allocated for paid internships. The House Committee on Ethics explains how the MRA can be used by members. The MRA may be used only for official expenses. It may not be converted to personal or campaign use or applied towards any unofficial activity. As a general matter, only the MRA and members' personal funds may be used to defray official expenses. House Rule 24, which sets forth the prohibition on unofficial office accounts, bars the use of private funds or in-kind support from outside sources for official activities. And in addition to possibly violating House rules, the misuse of the MRA may also subject a member or employee to criminal prosecution and actions to recover the misspent funds. On May 6, 2022, Speaker Nancy Pelosi sent a Dear Colleague letter to all members stating how the MRA increase was to be used. In this letter, Speaker Pelosi stated that pursuant to the statutory authority of the Speaker in 2 U.S.C. 4532, the House will, for the first time ever, set the minimum annual pay for staff at $45,000. The deadline to implement this new pay order is September 1, 2022. The maximum staffer pay is increased from $199,300 to $203,700, and the House will vote next week on a resolution to enable staffers to join a union. The U.S. Senate received a similar large increase in their office accounts. Now, Nancy Pelosi and many other members of Congress are surprised that anyone could question their decision to provide raises to their staffs. How could anyone object to helping people get a raise? After all, these are the people who are helping the members do such a wonderful job of running the country. How could anyone complain about the quality of their work when inflation is over 8%? Mortgage rates are now at 5.5%, adding hundreds of dollars to the average monthly mortgage payment. The national debt is nearing $31 trillion. The Bureau of Labor Statistics indicated that productivity is falling at an annual rate of 7.5%, and gas prices are at an average of $4.80 a gallon, and in some states it's close to $6 a gallon. So what does all this have to do with the fair tax? The fair tax will not stop inflation or the federal government continuing to borrow more and more money. But the fair tax will at least enlighten members of Congress and their respective staffs about the true cost of federal government spending. Not even members of Congress and their soon-to-be rewarded staffs have any idea about the actual amounts their family income is reduced by the income payroll tax system. Like all of us, they see that payroll taxes and income taxes are deducted from their checks, but also like us, they don't see how much more they're paying for the goods and services they purchase because of the embedded cost of the income payroll tax system being passed on to them. The fair tax will make the federal government more accountable to all of us because every person in America will clearly see the cost of the federal government on every retail purchase of a new product or retail service. Every person in America can calculate the amount of the fair tax applicable to every program in the federal budget. Every wage earner will receive all of their pay with no withholding, no payroll taxes. Every company owner that provides new retail goods or retail services will file a simple sales tax return, and they'll be compensated for collecting taxes for the federal government. Every company owner that is not in the retail business will not have to file any kind of tax return at all. No one will ever again have to spend time, effort, or money filling out complicated federal tax returns or trying to interpret the incomprehensible federal income tax code. Members of Congress can no longer make millions of dollars from lobbyists seeking to buy favorable tax treatment for their clients, and the rules upon which both individual and corporate financial and retirement planning decisions were based will no longer be constantly changing. In conclusion, when you have people in the federal government who are looking at the disaster they've created, who are they going to blame? Obviously, they can't possibly fault themselves because they can point to computer simulations that clearly show that their policies should be having a very positive effect. Therefore, the blame is not on them, but it's on the rest of us who are not acting in the way the computer models predicted. Maybe, to paraphrase a famous quote from Thomas Edison, they can say that they haven't really failed, but instead they found 1,000 solutions that don't work. They say that if you just give them more time, they will eventually get it right. Setting aside our skepticism that the IRS will eventually get it right, wouldn't it be easier to implement a system where everyone, including members of Congress and their staffs, could see the real cost of the federal government? If we had the fair tax, they could clearly see how much the fair tax rate would need to be increased to generate the additional money they want to spend. As it is now, they don't have a clue how income tax law changes relate to extra spending. And history has shown that they really don't care. If they want to spend money, they just do it. Under the fair tax, if members of Congress want to spend 20% more than the fair tax is generating in federal revenue, then everyone in the country would know that it would require a 20% increase in the fair tax rate to cover it. Of course, once the fair tax is law, the resulting boom it will create in economic growth will create an unprecedented increase in federal revenues. This will in turn create a real debate on whether or not to reduce the fair tax rate, use the increased revenues for more government spending, or maybe even start paying down our enormous national debt. At least all of us will know what the federal government is costing us, and that will enable us to make better decisions. Now, isn't that the way the government is supposed to work? The income payroll tax system is broken. It's no longer working. We can't repair it, but we can replace it with the fair tax. All Americans must join us before it's too late and the wonderful country we love is further harmed. Join us and take back control of our country, not with bullets, but with the elimination of one of the biggest threats to our liberty and economic prosperity, the income payroll tax. We should all remember Edmund Burke's warning that applies to our efforts to take back control. Nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could only do a little. We should also remember this quote from George Orwell's 1984, which, if we do nothing, may foretell your and your children's future. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. So what can each of us do? We can write letters and make calls to our elected representatives and attend Zoom town hall meetings demanding that if they really want to allow Americans to take back control, the first step is to eliminate the income payroll tax system and enact the FAIRtax. Take back control. Help us pass the FAIRtax. The IRS will be gone and we'll pay our taxes when we make purchases. We, not the ruling class and their minions in D.C., will decide how much federal tax we pay. And we'll know how much tax we're paying because taxes will no longer be hidden from us. They'll be clearly shown on every retail receipt. If you have friends who don't know about the FAIRtax, send them to FAIRtax.org. Have them watch the whiteboards under how it works, and if they agree, ask them to please join us. Then, contact your members of Congress and the President and demand that Congress pass the FAIRtax, the only truly fair tax.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.